Christmas Eve. If you're turning to this episode real time, I hear ya. You wanted to get away from all the hustle and bustle of the holiday season, didn't ya? But for once, I collected Christmas-related stories. Spooky things happened on Christmas. Now, Christmas is a national holiday in South Korea, even though it is not traditionally a Christian nation. It's largely due to the first president of South Korea, also the first dictator I must add, was educated in the US and a Presbyterian church follower. He made sure to make Christmas a holiday in the first year of his presidency. But having no traditional basis, Christmas in Korea is largely regarded as a day of a vague celebration. The perception, imagery, symbolism, and the commercial aspect of Christmas are largely adopted straight from the US tradition, with some odd Japanese influence dotted here and there, like people buying a fancy decorated cake for some reason. But the religious and family aspect of the day is more or less lost, and it is regarded as a day to party, unless you are a Christian yourself. It is especially thought to be a romantic day to celebrate with a girlfriend or boyfriend, so young people with no romantic partner often take Christmas Day with a bitter taste. Otherwise, for the majority of people busy living their life, it is just a random day off in December before the new year. Because the only thing today's collection shares is they happened on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, it may feel a bit random. One story could belong to the haunted toilet episode, other could be possession episode, and yet another to strange childhood memory, etc. But as a collection, I think you can have a glimpse of how people spend Christmas Day in Korea. So, here are 6 allegedly true stories about spooky things happened on Christmas Day. As always, handpicked, translated, and narrated by a host, Anthony. I don't think I have any spiritual gift. Indeed, I never saw or sensed ghosts and whatnot. But I have this one strange memory. Memory is not clear because I was very young then, but must have been about Christmas Eve. I remember how I and my 2 brothers made a fuss as my dad put up and decorate a Christmas tree. I was absolutely fascinated by the blinking lights and the carol tune it played. That night, after a little family Christmas party, the whole family slept together in the living room. And I don't remember how, but the next thing I know is that I was up and looking at the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree. What was I expecting? Perhaps Santa Claus that my parents said would visit in the dead of the night. And indeed, there was something in front of the tree. All I could see was the black outline against the backdrop of blinking fairy lights. But I'm sure I did see something there. I think I was just silently suppressing my jumping heart. Maybe I was excited to finally meet Santa. Or maybe I was plain scared. I don't have further memory of what happened. Maybe it was all but a dream or a warped memory. But whenever Christmas comes around, and I see a Christmas tree decorated with blinking lights, I go back to the night decades ago. I'm in my last year of high school. Just last Christmas Eve, I met up with 3 mates. None of us had a girlfriend, so our plan was to get a motel room and just drink a lot. Well, alright, we are still underage, but what else was there to do for a group of bored boys on Christmas Day? But we certainly didn't see how difficult it should be to find a room on Christmas Eve. It looked like all the couples in the world were out and occupied all the motel rooms. Those still on offer were well above our budget too. Then one mate came up with an idea. "There's some basement space in my church. We could sneak in and drink there." It strangely sounded like a good idea to drink there overnight and attend the Christmas service in the morning. So we went ahead. The basement was one big open space. There was no heating and pretty chilly, but for thirsty boys, it didn't matter much. We drank and fooled around into 2 in the morning. Fortunately, there were a pile of cushions and blankets, so we wrapped ourselves up and dozed away. In the middle of the night, my eyes popped open and was shocked to see a strange black box floating right in front of my face. I froze and stared at it for a good few seconds, then squeezed my eyes shut and opened again. And by then, it was gone. I hardly ever get scared. Darkness, horror film, I don't care. But the sight of the black box really scared me. I didn't even dare to get up. Like a scared little boy, I snuck right up to my mate's back, sleeping next to me. Somehow I managed to fall back to sleep, but next I was rudely woken up by somebody kicking my side. I jumped and turned to look back, but there was nothing but the chilling air and darkness. In the end, I spent the rest of the night wide awake and alert. In the morning, I told mates what I experienced. One of them looked surprised and joined that he was too kicked by somebody in the middle of the night. Then another said he had the most horrifying nightmare, chased by some dark figure all night. In the end, we skipped the idea of Christmas service and scattered back home, tired and deflated. Could it be because we invaded and drank in the holy space of the church? It's what the older sister of my close friend experienced. I've known her for many years, and I've seen her. She's normally very kind and poised, so I don't have any reason to doubt her count. She majored media study, and her first job after graduation was by one of the major newspaper publisher. She was very eager to prove herself worthy, so made it a routine to be the first one to come to work, usually. That day was Christmas Eve, but regardless, she arrived the office at 5 in the morning. Midwinter morning was chilly and dark, and there was just one male colleague in the entire office. She sat down to start her day, but oopsie, she got a call of nature for number 2. She decided to visit the toilet before anybody else come in. The ladies in the office was pretty large, with 7 cubicles, with a rather large creaking metal door at the entrance. Friend's sister took the cubicle at the farthest end and concentrated on her business. But not long after, she heard the toilet door creaking open and loudly close. Well, somebody else came in, she thought. But why should this person take the cubicle right next to hers? She felt a bit uncomfortable. Her discomfort only grew because whoever in the next cubicle seemed to make no noise at all, not even a sign of any movement. Could it be some sort of pervert taking a peep or something? She paid attention to the bottom gap and the head above for any suspicious activity. But it was just still dead silent. She quickly finished her business and flushed down. And just then, a hand slid through the bottom gap. It was a pale, delicate female hand, and fumbled around as if looking for something. Friend's sister was stunned and quickly jumped up on the toilet bowl. Soon the entire arm, almost up to the shoulder, pushed in and vigorously fumbled about. The arm was bare, even though it was a cold winter morning. "There's nothing here if you're looking for something," she shouted. But there was no response. Only the searching movement got more frantic. Soon the second hand pushed in too, still bare. And it was impossible. Both were right hands. Now totally panicked, she screamed for help. Fortunately, her male colleague heard it and came for her rescue. As soon as he loudly bursted into the toilet, the mystery hands withdrew. Friend's sister shouted there was somebody in the next cubicle. "But here's nothing. Don't worry and come out," the colleague said. She came out only to find the next cubicle indeed empty, with its door wide opened. The two checked all the other cubicles too, but there was nobody else in the toilet. Friend's sister got a sick leave for the day and left the company not long after. Christmas 2 years ago. That year, both I and my girlfriend were particularly busy at work. I think we could barely meet even on weekends for months into Christmas. To make it up, I planned a romantic getaway for Christmas Day. I booked a holiday cottage somewhere and stole a bottle from my dad's expensive liquor collection too. The plan was to spend the Christmas Eve night at my girlfriend's together and head off to the cottage. But my work wouldn't let up, and I had to go to work at the crack of dawn on Christmas Eve too. Early winter morning was still dark, and I didn't really feel like getting up, so sat on the bed a while, when the motion detecting light at the hallway suddenly came on its own. Well, it happens sometimes. Perhaps some dust floating around, I thought, and got ready. I must say I felt strangely chilly and heavy, almost like I was struck with some sort of dark foreboding that morning. But what could I do? I had to work hard if I was to enjoy the day off with my girlfriend the following day. The road was at least empty at 6 in the morning. As I drove on, I heard some squeaking noise from the back seat. My car seats have full leather covering, and it was that typical squeak when somebody sits or shifts on it. It was so clear too that I couldn't resist to look back. And of course, there was nobody there. Arriving at the company parking lot, I was reversing the car slowly into the spot, and this time, the parking sensor went off. As you should know, the beep should usually go from slower to faster as the car gets closer to the obstacle, but this one went right into fast and intense beeps as if my car was about to crush into something. I stopped short and got off the car to check if there was anything unexpected. But nothing. I tried to reason it must have been some dust or debris flying over the sensor, but a series of little weird happenings that morning nonetheless gave me chills. About lunchtime, I opened my phone to send my girlfriend a text, and found my bestie had sent me 3 messages meantime, informing that our mutual high school friend passed away that very morning. I'll call him A here. A and I were pretty close through the high school years, but grew apart after graduation. I think we hadn't met for 6 years or so by then. Bestie said that A's family was still looking for people to carry A's coffin, and suggested that I should come for the old time's sake. I wouldn't lie. I wasn't ready to take it up without a second thought. What about the big Christmas plan with a girlfriend? Give it all up for an old friend whom I didn't see for 6 years? But I sensed I would regret if I didn't see him off. So in the end, I explained the situation to my girlfriend and to my boss and headed to the funeral home. It did strike me differently to actually see A's photo on the funeral shrine. A's mother welcomed me with red swollen eyes from crying. After all those years, she still remembered my name too. I only heard it later, but towards the end of his life, A seemed to have let himself go. He smoked too much and got so obese too that he needed an oxygen mask for daily tasks. And in the early morning of Christmas Eve, he had to take the oxygen off while taking MRI. And just then, had a fatal heart attack. That was about 5:50 in the morning, and I may be linking the non-existing dots here, but that was just about when I noticed weird phenomena around me that morning. The light coming on by itself, sense of presence in my car, and the parking sensor going off. Could it be A's soul making the last visit to his old friend before he went away, telling me that he'd like me to come to his funeral? I don't know. But at least I don't regret that I was there to do my little part at his practically empty, lonely funeral. I have a friend from childhood. I'll call him Ketdong here. It means dog shit, but it really is his nickname, and in endearing sense too, I swear. At the time of this story, he lived with his girlfriend, whom I'll call Hisuk here. Hisuk worked as a service girl at a bar, and on top of that also was suffering shaman's illness. Basically, a shamanic god was trying to make her a shaman serving him, but she was refusing it. But whatever, it wasn't my business, and I never noticed anything weird. Until one Christmas Eve more than 10 years ago. I had then just broke up with my girlfriend and having a bitter Christmas. But what's the best friend for? Ketdong called me out to join him and his girlfriend, Hizin. We started the evening off playing billiards. It wasn't just for fun either, because the loser would be paying for dinner afterwards. Ketdong and Hizin did their best, playing all the dirty tricks. But I couldn't possibly lose the bet. After a bloody battle, I won and dragged the grumbling couple to the fancy Japanese restaurant that I always wanted to try once. Food was excellent, and warm sake was perfect for the winter night. But the poor losers didn't quite let go of the grudge and started teasing me that how I liked a miserable Christmas all alone, that I should have been more patient and tried to keep my ex for Christmas. It was just a few weeks prior that I broke up with her, so I couldn't take their tease as just a jest, and I think I drank a glass too much. By the time we came out, I was pretty pissed, and Ketdong suggested that I come to their place. Ketdong and Hizen's place was in a remote corner across a reservoir. We took a taxi, and it should have taken us all the way, but we had to get off at the edge of the reservoir because I couldn't suppress nausea. In the end, I threw up the expensive dinner at the roadside, and we drunken three walked across the pitch-dark, empty rice field. After about 10 minutes, I could see the single orange street lamp, which meant Ketdong's place was near. But strangely, as we got closer to the light, I started feeling more and more anxious rather than relieved. I didn't understand it at the time, but looking back, I think it was a sort of flight instinct telling me to run away. All my fuzz stood on end, and it felt like all the cells of my body stirring and shivering. And it didn't take long to see what the cause of that flight instinct was. Hisuk abruptly bursted into mad laughter. Soon she was into a full-blown fit, unspeakable swears to us, jumping and floundering her limbs all directions. Ketong and I jumped to keep her down on each side, but my God, her force was not that of a young spindly woman. She managed to shake us two boys off and ran to the lamppost and beat her own head onto it time after time. Ironically, the sheer pain from it seemed to help her regain herself a bit and said, "Take me to my auntie." "What auntie? Where should that be?" I was confused, but Ketong seemed to know exactly what to do. He hauled Hisuk up on his back and quietly walked back towards the bigger road across the empty rice field. But before we quite got there, Hisuk had another fit. 3 taxis stopped, but seeing Hisuk's state, they just ran off. The 4th one finally took us. I don't know where we went to. All I could tell was that it was a fairly quiet and eerie part of the town with houses and buildings sparsely dotted around. Taxi stopped at one of such houses. A house with a white flag, meaning it was a shaman's establishment. The woman who opened the door to us was a 50-something looking woman with a gentle demeanor. She didn't say anything, just gave one look at Hisuk and went back in. When she came out again, there were a few weird stuffs in her hand. She started whipping Hisuk with a sort of a tree branch while jingling her many bells. Hisuk went even wilder a while, but eventually calmed down a bit.
"You boys go home. It is better I deal with her by myself,"
the shaman said. But as we turned around to go, we heard Hisuk shouting,
"Do you think you can just go, leaving me alone? I'll make sure you don't go home safely."
All husky, cracking voice sounded nothing like Hisuk's normal voice. We took out a taxi back to Ketong's place. When we reached a sharp curve around the reservoir, the driver didn't slow down. Taxi slipped on the snow-clad road and crushed down to the rice field. We all 3 got injured, if not serious or fatal, still bad enough to get hospitalized a while. About a week later, we 3 met in presence of the insurance guy to negotiate a payout. At the end of it, I couldn't restrain myself from asking the taxi driver why he didn't slow down. It surely wasn't just because of snow and slippery road. The driver took some time before he opened his mouth.
"I wanted to slow down, but my foot didn't move. I looked down and saw something. I don't know, something whitish was holding my foot from moving. I was so shocked I couldn't even turn the wheel to veer around the curve."
He looked still stunned as he recounted it. But all I could think was what Hisuk yelled at our back as we left, that cracking voice and glaring eyes full of hate. Only later I heard it, but apparently when one gets a call from a shamanic god but refuses to accept it, one is left spiritually defenseless. Basically any passing spirit could possess and take you over. I didn't know, but it wasn't the first time Hisuk was taken up by a spirit that way. One time, she was taken up by a horny ghost and turned into a slut, and other times she was taken by a kid spirit and nagged for sweets. I don't think I could stand such a girlfriend, no matter how much I loved her. But Ketong, my friend, he's something. I just turned 20 this year, and it's what happened at Christmas Eve last year. Now, my mother likes to visit a fortune teller occasionally. She indeed did when I was born too, and what the fortune teller told her was rather ominous and unusual. That I would go through 3 life-threatening occasions before I turned 20. If I could survive all 3 and reach 30, then I could expect to enjoy a long life without further incident. I would have just laughed it off, but I can't deny the almost fatal car accident I suffered when I was 6. The big scar on my head is the reminder. Or another accident when I was 11. A speeding motorbike crushed into the back wheel of my bike. I was tossed to the side of the road and my bike was decimated. Fortunately, I survived it apart from bruises all over. And then, I didn't have any major incident up to the point of this story. Christmas Eve of my 19th year. SAT was over, and I and my mates decided to have some proper fun among us boys, since none of us had a girlfriend anyway. We went to a karaoke bar and then a pub. Past 10, we were running out of money, so decided to go to one of the mates' house. All good, but it was freezing cold there. The host bumped up the boiler, but probably because it was kept off all day, or because the old lodging had crappy insulation, it just didn't get warm. Everybody acts in a particular way when one gets drunk. Mine is to sleep. When I get proper drunk, I just find the coziest spot I can find and doze away. But in that freezing place, I could not, no matter how hard I tried. I didn't want more drink, I just wanted to catch my sweet drunken slumber. So, I decided to just go back home. Now, where my mates lived was Kochanggun in Gyeongsang province. It's a tiny town, almost a village, with a small population. Bus was the only means of transportation, but the last bus left at 8, and you could never expect to find a random taxi passing by either, meaning walking was the only option to my home 5 kilometers away. Drunken and single-minded, I thought it was nothing. Probably an hour walk, and then I should be home to have my sweet drunken sleep. "I'm going home," I said to my mates, and they just laughed and said goodbye. I think they thought I was joking. It made me more determined, and set out for my midnight journey. 5 kilometers may sound like nothing much, but the route was not through a normal town and shops and paved pedestrian road, but a motorway through a winding mountainous terrain where wild animals sometimes jumped into a running car. The next cluster of houses would be at least 2 kilometers away. Despite of it all, I was already leaving the boundary of my mate's village. To my drunken mind, the village totems seemed to be smiling at me, so I waved at them and skipped my way, humming a song. If somebody saw me, he or she would have thought I was mad. I was young, healthy, and drunk, and it was all fine as long as the flashlight from my phone was there. But, oh shit, my phone ran out of juice, and the only guiding light went off without warning. And just then I tumbled and fell because my foot was caught at a raised pavement marker. In the cold darkness, my joyous mood tankered. What was I doing? Why did I start this nonsense journey? But the only way was forward. And then there was something whitish floating about on the roadside. I didn't even know how to react and just walked past it, pretending not seeing it at all. My mind was busy to rationalize it might just be a scarecrow or something from a neighboring farm or orchard. But by fact I knew there was none such there. Once my mind set to get scared, it went out of control. All the scary stories I ever heard and every scary scene from all the horror films I ever watched popped out in my mind one after another. After about 20 minutes of walk, I reached the village at the midpoint. But time was passing 20 past midnight and there was not a single light on. I was getting tired, but I had to carry on. My feet seemed to take steps on their own despite aching muscles. But when I looked down, I was shocked. I was walking along the center line of the motorway, though I thought all the while I was following the shoulder line. Did I lose my mind or what? I don't know why, but I suddenly reminded myself that the fortune teller predicted 3 near-death incidents before 20. If she should be right, I still had 1 left before I turned 20 a week later. Then I saw a car approaching from the opposite direction. It was the first sign of other person since I left mate's place. It was a black car and drove on past me. But then, why did it stop short? I looked back and saw the car making a U-turn, then drove up right next to me and kept up with my walking pace. What did they want? Why were they following me? If they were some sort of criminals and kidnapped or killed me and tossed my body away at this remote roadside? I and mates used to joke there should be many unknown shallow graves along the remote road through these mountains. Was I going to end up in one? After a good 30 seconds into the situation, my panic turned into an anger. What? What do you want? Gonna kill me? I turned to the car. The window was down on my side, and whoever on the driver's seat was clearly watching me. With no light on inside, I couldn't see the face, but I just stared straight back. The silent stare battle lasted about a minute, and then the car drove off, made another U-turn, and went away to the original direction it was heading. I dropped on the spot. I was so scared and stunned, but couldn't even scream or cry. Looking back, the driver might have just wanted to check on me. After all, what kind of mad guy would be walking the remote motorway alone on Christmas night? Or maybe he thought I was a ghost. I was wearing a long grey coat, and he just wanted to check. That he didn't say anything doesn't seem to support my theory. But I don't know. I really rather want to believe he didn't mean a harm. 40 minutes in, I reached the second village on the way. Just like before, there was not a single light on. I took a seat on the bench at the bus stop to catch my breath. Then I heard another car approaching. It was a truck this time, and it drove past me. But wait, something wasn't right. Why did the truck turn no headlight on in this pitch dark of the night? If I just kept walking on the way, I could very well have hit by the mad truck with no lights on. I didn't want to hang around in the dark road anymore. There was about 1 kilometer to home, and I ran all the way. My heart felt like jumping out of my mouth, but the fear squeezed the desperate energy out of me. My mom opened the door for me. "What are you doing here? I thought you'd spend the night at your friend's," she said. "I couldn't sleep there, so I said. Dear, dear. Where are the others? Just me. I came by myself. Only then she realized what I did and slapped my back. What kind of nonsense is this? Don't forget you are not yet 20, she reminded me. Back in my room, I put my phone on charger and called my mate.
Hey, where are you?
He said. I walked back home, I said.
What? You're joking. Your shoes are still here and we just thought... Wait, did you really walk back home? Barefooted?
Only then I looked down and found my white socks stained with blotches of red spots. Indeed, the bottom of the socks bore holes, and my feet were rags with scratches and cuts. Maybe it was just I was too drunk, and everything was just in my drunken mind. But what a way to spend a Christmas night. Never again. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. As I explained in the intro, because Christmas is not a big traditional holiday that forms a whole holiday season, it was actually not easy to find stories specifically related to Christmas. I really had to search high and low through various web communities. So I think this would be the only true Christmas special episode on my channel. If you enjoyed my work, please leave it a like and a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel. If you'd support me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. Buy Me a Coffee supporters enjoy an early access to my new content. Thank you. I'll be taking a week off for Christmas and the New Year, so Merry Christmas if you celebrate it, and a Happy New Year to you all, my dear viewers. Wars are still raging around the world and economic prospects are bleak, but I hope that we find some renewed energy to carry on in 2024. I'll see you on the first Sunday of the new year with even more spooky dark tales.